Hmm. Hmm. Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're really well. Start live. We are talking about project review JKSM. So, start out today's live tutorial. I dropped 25,000 lakhs JKSM students 15 245 cartridges 0.5 tutors WhatsApp and press digits within the individual's personal calendar. Lead reactors will receive and further interruption, notifications, and developments behind the question in source of the generation. Well, assembly then was sent in universe that verifications of the option of the back and such applications application is the verification check is this or tootless with this application Syncas Gauss and Seglet development and until 15 full time and ingrained and that in zero knowledge proofs or assemblies and that decolonized introductions and that the founder CEO Cinco Gulf and Fields is in mathematics even with Thomas and Brett at Fields for make player project and Cinco bring an application experience wide date and 61 and application and universities and protocols strictly regulated. When for the environment, they gave introspection in and the technical overviews and JK and JKWASM program JK snake compatibility declamations and applications and that provide and that studied proof of that cost of the specials overrated and tokens separations and the investors and justice tools and that strips and that investigations and ecosystemers and that province mining airdrops and that Dick schools and team and the JKSN marketing exchange and liquidity project highlights and that applications and then the slogan significantly lower of most American potencies and that negotiations and less than the provide and the stickers and the harvest and our chickens and inventions and the likes and crafted 12 months and that basics and applications and for like and the craft potentials and that the most applications and justice and ecosystems and foundations to get GTGs and that month and that like providing mining then drops 2.5% index schools and for teams, 10% vacations, half operating strategies and marketing 5%, and exchange liquidity for the that duplicated lesson combines and duplications and for most effective versions and for more. In applications, the Launchpool and the Flow Lawyer and the Jacob product and applications that excluding and for most applications, the like allowance and the exchange and the final bright declarations and accepted youth at deliberation. Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're really well. Start live. We are talking about project review JKSM. So, start out today's live tutorial. I dropped 25,000 lakhs JKSM students 15 245 cartridges 0.5 tutors WhatsApp and press digits within the individual's personal calendar. Lead reactors will receive and further interruption, notifications, and developments behind the question in source of the generation. Well, assembly then was sent in universe that verifications of the option of the back and such applications application is the verification check is this or tootless with this application Syncas Gauss and Seglet development and until 15 full time and ingrained and that in zero knowledge proofs or assemblies and that demonized interactions and that the founder CEO Cinco Gulf and Fields is in mathematics even with Thomas and Brett at Fields for appreciates and that likes overviews and from most separating bring an application experience why date and 61 and applications and universities and protocols strictly regulated and that the applications and the significance like financial figures and for most implications by federation the address communications streams and conditionals get launchable and 28 projects and that by multiple MBGs MTH and for most competencies and like for most incompetencies and dislikes and the competencies for most appear in the ecosystems and that likes candidate data application tables for most and the likes MBGs unlock method and that likes and then applications for most appear in the competencies for most tokens for light and that innocent उसको फायदे and the and immediately soon mining and begins for most incompetencies and the like initial for most increasing for the likes and the competencies and ecosystems and the text হানিগুলো খাবার সাকিয়ে দিকে লাগে আমি সিলে বলতো distribution based launch to execute and the trade participants for most incompetencies ma lo sono quando lo una casa di cui era solo dopo poi da letto che se entri che tu cari one putting industrial combat and acid values for most competencies for most institutional and the competencies for like and the applications and the applications gap program building nodes and launch post tracking set of platforms and users taking GTs and BTC GTs and for most competencies algorithm and participants contributors and the platforms and the implications and participants are interest please follow the assembly rewards events for most competencies and to light and applications for most that likes and that English version civil and for most capitals and inlines concrete is but an alternate expression and even opposites and Apple INCs and their unlocking unit kino. Price even cannot access and service participants and their agreements for failures of the likes and applications location. Technologia. Technologia. An agreement for most hypercraft potencies. So that's their locations and then the enhance This warning and generated from the with Intel cells and for most competencies and then the capacities and for the photo for more apparent capacities. The operation and operating technicals and that competencies and that like and applications and that likes and that applications and that like applications for most apparent impression and that applications and tutors and techniques and process and that likes and applications. The season token get teams and the July 2025 and get times and the end July 2025. Creator laboratories data about 2005 has calculated simply applications and get and applications and the jewels and whatever permissions and then stay connected and solution the applications website and then download from and bound bonuses and the topics and the likes and the triffids and global interest and cyber security 100 fruitness 100 fruitness. That candidates and fat trick applications and the light and implications and that likes and that ambitious multis and ambitious straight embedded fan finds and that 1 8 18,007 images and text and creations and to light and reflections and the classic divisionals and the like hypothesis for most apparent that implications and one and quarter 87 slabs and images with and maximums for most and hypothesis and that like possible fastest for tradings and 5,000 images and 5,000 and the likes and hypothesis and for images and from most apparent hypothesis and that likes amount the paragraphs for most apparent hypothesis for motion applications and lights and maximum that empty and basis and that applications tries and falls of inferior for motion hypothesis and that likes and that VTCs and then first trading spot rules and that the user 2200 and used with and can design from most applications and applications and like for most hypothesis applications and that likes 100 applications that spot trading source and the trading and with applications and the like with other hypotheses we share 300 applications and the light and for most applications and that likes this application Raisa বাইরে পানি খাওয়া আছে applications and applications and like the applications and the ecosystem and the applications and like the efficiency of applications and the likes and the capitals and applications and the most follows and the pages tradings and volumes and the 5,000 USD to one candies and the 70 candies and the 10,000 candies and very different of price during the applications successful and benches and the right and applications and likes and applications for most complete application can is all the price was and 50,000 MPs and maximum dividends at 100 frequencies. First was not to call it in the papers and that application and link that and complete thousands QGs and spot MPGs and people and in others. MPGs from most buttons and like some applications and product applications for as events and for the introduction and pages and events to compare global and financial events and then with the pages and billions to 29 billion and billions and for most applications and like exchange and wood and the websites to and pages official website application and noise applications and the class notes and the participants and most applications join us but also have successful journings and events and the applications and applications rewards and the rewards and distributions that light and reward applications with afford in applications and the tables and the test applications and pro applications. Applications are the honey cover. Applications are to cover and markets applications and the live articles and the table conversations in any case can Hindi नहीं कोई yes. Application that defines application and write events and from most applications that the like that's everything. ये बिल्कुल मुझे and fairness and applications that the including and from most applications but the sense and the radius is the these applications and the like same for competence pattern for most apparent confidence and for actions and the tips freight hours and applications and classification and business and Julius expression carry the hypothesis and data was and environment substances subsequently and in the sound carry and hypothesis and big moose. Afuno eu moose le caso exam sile. Application specification and the tracks and they will come to S from applications and that most appearing hypothesis and do like expressions and for most and to license applications and that turn in between for device commercial and stay connected and the website and the website and the desktops and for more bonuses has two more applications and preference basics and applications and certain securities and check 100% receivers. Nasser preachers and the Chinese melting bank and that Mr. Nasser Tahir. Nasser 36 and operated financial commercial inversions worldwide and that multi-banks and for most apparent potencies and its applications for most apparent potencies and the Chinese for most apparent likes and for the Asia stocks and to like and potencies for most in thus increasing for the Chinese banking and applications. The recognized and listed traders and for most financial assets by the application and like receive honor regulations and that likes and that halsa. Now that fully songs and for seven highlights and beaches for most America potential. Applications and the like dynamics and for most America potential and like that and social and for most America potential and the singles for most America potentials more tradings and the light inspections and the readings and for most and experience in techniques economies. Okay, then most MBGs and the black market banks and financial ecosystems and the Japanese and loyalties and the fabrications, applications and the likes and the platforms and technical overviews and the MBGs from most apparent capitals discount for most apparent capitals for more appreciate and like to the equitials and capitals and most apparent that stabilities and the tokens calculation status and for this relevance rounds and for most apparent capitals and like that visiting and private for most appearing private trains is visiting and private round 73 and to light ecosystemers and the appropriate boom boom patapino boom boom patapino cappuccino assassin and right visitings and visiting private rounds and that light and captaincies visiting for most in potentials and great visitings public arounds and means one visiting for most apparent like state essentials and to light and then applications and its applications for most apparent potencies and the Chinese for most apparent likes and for the Asia stocks and to like and potencies for most in thus increasing for the Chinese banking and applications. The recognized and listed traders and for most financial assets by the application and like receive honor regulations and that likes and that halsa. That fully songs and for seven highlights and beaches for most America potential. Applications and the like dynamics and for most America potential and like that and social and for most America potential and the singles for most America potentials more tradings and the light inspections and the readings and for most and experienced in techniques economies. Okay, then most MBGs and the black market banks and financial ecosystems and the difference and loyalties and the fabrications, applications and the likes and the platforms and technical overviews and the MBGs from most apparent capitals discount for most apparent capitals far more appreciate and like to the potentials and potentials in most apparent that skills and the tokens calculation status and for the relevance rounds and for most apparent potencies and like that visiting and private for most apparent potencies visiting and private round 73 and to like ecosystemers and the appreciate boom boom patapino. Boom boom patapino. Cappuccino assassin. And red visiting private rounds and that light and cappotencies visiting for most intra potentials and great visitings publics around and means one visiting for most apparent like state and visitings for about cappotencies and that meant 36 months and that light and the efficiency and for most equations and to light cappotencies for most increases and to light and that the efficiency and it likes ecosystemers and that the competencies most effort into light and essentials and to light and then application and light month to appear in the competencies month visitings for most and light is specialists and that month and 36 visitings for most and competencies light and that the ecosystemers and that most ecologicals in and that the visitings and that means applications for most and that likes and ecosystemers and that most in it and fully unlocked and risk reminders that applications currencies and from most apparent that likes and the appreciates and that likes overviews for most apparent potencies most and that and the applications and the significance and like financial figures and for most implications by federation the address communications streams and conditionals. Get launchpools and 28 projects and that by multiplying the MBGs, MTH and for most competencies and like for most incompetencies and dislikes and the competencies for most appearing that ecosystems and that likes candidate data application tables for most and the likes MBGs unlock method and that likes and then applications for most appear in the competencies for most tokens for light and that innocent उसको फायदे अंदर immediately soon mining and begins for most incompetencies and like initial for most increasing for the likes and the competencies and ecosystem and the text হানিগত খাবার সাকিয়ে দিকে লাগে আমি সিলে বলতো distribution based launch to execute and the trade participants for most incompetencies Ma lo sono qua voluto una casa di cui era solo. Dopo poi da letto. Io se entri, io tu cari. One put in Russian combat and acid bellows from most troubling provinces for most contributional and that potentials for like and the applications and the applications gap. Program building nodes and Launchpool tracking circle platform and users taking GTs and BTC GTs and for most capabilities. Algorithm. And participant contributors and the platforms and the implications and participants are interest. Please follow the assembly rewards events for most capabilities. And to light and applications for most that likes and that English version the English version civil and for most capabilities and inlines concrete. Is but an alternate expression and even opposites and Apple INCs and their unlocking unit kino. Five even cannot access and service for disciplines and their agreements for failures of the likes and implications. Location. Technologia. Technologia. An agreement for most aircraft potencies. So that's their locations and then the enhance Dixoning and generated from the with Intel cells and for most competencies and then the capabilities and that capabilities and for the photo for more apparent capabilities. The operation and operating technicals and that capabilities and that like and applications and that likes and that applications and that like applications for most apparent impression. About trains is visiting and private round 73 075 and to light ecosystemers and the appropriate appropriate boom boom patapino boom boom patapino cappuccino assassino and red visitings and visiting private rounds and that light and cappotencies visiting for most in potentials and great visitings public arounds and means one visiting for most apparent like state and visitings for about cappotencies and that meant 36 months and that light and the rip efficiency and for most equations and to light potencies for most increases and to light and that the efficiency and it likes ecosystemers and that the potencies most effect into light and essentials and to light and then application. And light month to separate in the conferences month visiting for most and light is specialists and that month and 36 visitings for most conferences light and that the ecosystemers and that most ecologicals in and that the visitings and that means applications for most and that likes and ecosystemers and that most in it and police unlock the risk reminders that applications currencies and from most apparent that likes and the appreciates and that likes overviews for most apparent potencies most and that the applications and the significance. Like financial figures and for most implications by federation, the address congregations, streams and conditionals. Get launchable and 28 projects ended by multi-banks, MBGs, MTH, and for most competencies and like for most incompetencies and dislikes and the competencies for most appearing that ecosystems and that likes candidate data application tables for most and like MBGs unlock method and that likes and then applications for most appeared in the competencies for most tokens for light and that the innocent to fight the other. And immediately soon mining and begins for most incompetencies and like initial for most increasing for the likes and the competencies and ecosystems and the text হানিগুলো খাওয়া ক্লিয়ার লাগে আমি সিলে বলতো distribution based launch to life views and the trade participants for most competencies ma lo sono un po' una casa di quella solo io voglio della eccoci yes entri e tu cari one putting Russian combat and acid values for most traveling competencies for most institutional and that competencies for like and the applications and then the applications program building nodes and Launchpool streaming across platforms and users taking GTs and BTC, GTs and from capitals algorithm. And participants contributors and the platforms and the implications and participants are interest. Please follow the assembly rewards events for most capitals. And to light and applications for most that likes and that English version civil and for most capitals and inlines concrete. Is but an all right expression and even operations and Apple INCs and their American United Kingdom. Five even cannot access and service participants and their agreements for failures of their license and applications. Location. Technologia. Technologia. An agreement for most aircraft potencies. So that's their locations and then the enhance this warning and generated from the with Intel cells and for most competencies and then the capabilities and that capabilities and for the photo for more capabilities. The operation and operating technicals and that capabilities and that like and applications and that like and that applications and that like applications for most abundant impression and that applications and tutors and techniques and photos and that likes and the season token get teams and the July 2025 and get teams and the and July 2025. Creator have wrote this in data about it doesn't. Five years calculated simply down applications and get and applications and the jewels and put whatever permissions and that To stay connected and solution the applications website and then download from and bound bonuses and the topics and the likes and the represent global interest and cyber security 100 fruitness 100 fruitness. That can of and fat applications and to light and implications and that likes and that ambitious multis and ambitious straight embedded fan finds and that 1 8 18,007 images and text and fluctuations and to light and reflections and the classic business and the like hypothesis for most apparent that implications and one and quarter 87 slabs and images with and maximums for most and hypothesis and that like flexible fastest for tradings and 5,000 images and for person and the likes and hypothesis and for images and from most apparent hypothesis and that likes amount the paragraphs for most event potential for motion applications and likes and maximum that empty and basis and that applications size and smooth of inferior for motion potential and that likes and that OTC and then first trading spot rules and that the user 2200 and release will and can descend from most applications and applications and like for most potencies applications and that likes 100 applications the spot trading stores and the trading and with applications and the like with other potencies we share 300 applications and the light and for most applications and that likes this application Raisa বাইরে ফানি খাওয়া আছে applications and applications and like the applications and the ecosystem ascended applications and like the process applications and the likes and the capitals and applications and the most follows and the pages tradings and volumes and the 5,000 USD to one candies and the 70 candies and the 10,000 candies and by reference of price during the applications successful and benches and the right and applications and likes and applications for most complete application can is all the price was and 50,000 MPs and mid 70 and 800 premium pages. First was not to quality in the prepares and that application and link that and complete thousands QGs and spot MPs and people and others. MPs from most buttons and likes and applications and product applications for as events and for the introduction and pages and events to and global and financial events and there with the pages and billions to 29 billion and billions and for most applications and like exchange and wood and the websites to and pages official website application and noise applications and the class notes and the participants and most applications join us battles and successful journey and events and the applications and applications rivers and the rivers and distributions that light and reward applications with 14 applications and the tables and the test applications and pro applications. Applications are the honey cover. Applications are the covers and markets applications and the like articles and the table conversations in any case can Hindi नहीं कोई yes. Application that the financial applications are right events and from most applications that the like in become music. And fairness and applications that the including and for most applications and specifically and the radius is the segment. These applications and the like sample competence pattern for most apparent confidence and for actions and the tricks freight hours and applications and classification and business choose and Julius expression carry the hypothesis and data was and environment substances sepically and in the sound carry and hypothesis and big moose. Afuno এই মুসলে কাজ হইতাম ছিল application specification and the tracks and they will come to S from applications and that most appearing hypotheticals and to like expressions and for most and to license applications and that trend in between for device commercials and stay connected and the website and the website and the desktops and for more bonuses and to most applications and for basics and applications and set and securities and check 100% receivers. NASA and great visitings public around and means one visiting for most apparent like state and visitings for aircraft and the meant 36 months and the light and the rip efficiency and for most equations and to light aircraft potencies for most increases and to light and that the efficiency and it likes ecosystems and that the craft potencies most effect into light and essentials and to light and then application. Unlike month to separate in the competencies month visiting for most unlike is specialists and that month and 36 visitings for most competencies like and that the ecosystem are and that most ecologicals in and that the visitings and that means applications for most and that likes and ecosystems and that most in it and fully unlocked and risk reminders that applications currencies and from most apparent that likes and the appreciates and that likes overviews for most apparent potencies most and that and the applications and the significance and like financial figures and for most implications by federation the address congregations streams and conditionals. Get launchable and 28 projects and that by multi-banks, MBGs, MTH, and for most competencies and like for most incompetencies and dislikes and the competencies for most appearing that ecosystems and that likes candidate data application tables for most and like MBGs unlock method and that likes and then applications for most appeared in the competencies for most tokens for light and that innocent उसको फायदे and the and immediately soon mining and begins for most incompetencies and like initial for most increasing for the likes and the competencies and ecosystems and the text হানিগুলো খাওয়া ক্লিয়ার লাগে আমি সিলে বলতো distribution based launch to execute and the trade participants for most incompetencies ma lo sono voluto una casa di cos'era solo dopo poi da letto che se entri che tu cari one putting industrial combat and acid values from most urban provinces for most contributional and that competencies for like and the applications and then the applications program building nodes and launch for streaming across platforms and users taking GTs and BTC GTs and from capitals algorithm. And participant contributors and the platforms and the implications and participants are interest. Please follow the assembly rewards events for most capitals. And to light and applications for most that likes and that English version civil and for most capitals and inlines concrete. Is but an right expression and even operations and Apple INCs and their American United Kingdom. Participant cannot access non-service participants and their agreements were Failures of the likes and applications. Location. Technologia. Technologia. An experiment for most hypercraft potencies. So that's their locations and then the enhance this warning and generated from the with Intel cells and for most competencies and then the capabilities and for the photo for more apparent capabilities. The operation and operating technical and that capabilities and that like and applications and that likes and that applications and that like applications for most apparent impression and that applications and tutors and technical and photos and that likes and the season don't get teams and the 2025 and get teams and the answer that 2025. Editor laboratories data about it doesn't. Five years calculated simply applications and get and applications and the jewels and whatever permissions and that just stay connected and solution applications website and then download from unbound bonuses and the topics and that likes and that represent global interest and cyber security, 100 focus, 100 focus. That can of and fabric applications and light and implications and that likes and that ambitious multis and ambitious straight embedded fan finds and that 1 8 18,007 images and text and fluctuations and to light and reflections and the classic business and the like hypothesis for most apparent that implications and 1 and quarter 87 slabs and images with and maximums for most and hypothesis and that like fastball fastest for tradings and 5,000 images and 4,000 and the likes and hypothesis and 5 images and from most apparent hypothesis and that likes amount the paragraphs for most Abanka potential for motion applications and lights and maximum that empty and basis and that applications size and smooth of inferior for motion potentials and that lights and that VTC and then first trading input rules and that the user 2200 and users will and can design from most applications and applications and like for most and potencies applications and that likes 100 applications this for trading stores and the trading and with applications and the like with other potencies we share 300 applications and the light and for most applications and that likes this application Raisa better funny cover say applications and applications and like the applications and the ecosystems and the applications and like the efficiency of applications and the likes and the capitals and applications and the most follows and the pages tradings and volumes and the 5,000 USD to one candies and the 70 candies and the 10,000 candies and very different of price to during the applications successful and benches and the right and applications and likes and applications for most complete application can is all the price was and 50,000 MPs and miss 70 and 800 frequencies. Passwords are not to call it in the previous and that application and link that and complete thousands QGs and spot MPGs and people and others. MPGs from most buttons and likes and applications and product applications for as events and for the introduction and pages and events to and global and financial events and then with the pages and billions to 29 billion and billions and for most applications and like exchange and wood and the web page tokens and pages official website application and noise applications and the class notes and the participants and most applications joiners battles and successful journings and events and the applications and applications rewards and distributions that light and reward applications with 14 applications and the tables and the test applications and group applications applications are the honey cover. Applications are the covers and markets applications and the like articles and the table conversations in any case can Hindi नहीं कोई yes. Application that the financial application and right events and from most applications that the like in become music and finance and applications that including and from most applications and the trade is the these applications and the like same for competence pattern for most apparent confidence and for like actions and the tips freight hours and applications and classification business chosen to less expression carry the hypothesis and data was and environment substances subsequently and the sound carry and hypothesis and big moose. Afuno yung moose le kaso exam sila. Application specification and the tracks and they will come to S from applications and that most appearing hypotheticals and to like expressions and for most and to license applications and that trend in between for device commercials and stay connected and the website and the desktops and for more bonuses and to most applications and for basics and applications and set and securities and check 100% receivers. Nasser preachers and the chain Miss Melty Bank and that Mr. Nasser Tahir. Minasa 36 around credit and financial commercial instructions worldwide and that multi-banks and for most American potencies and list applications for most American potencies and the Chinese for most American likes and for the Asia stocks and to like and potencies for most in thus increasing for the Chinese banking and applications. The recognized and listed traders and for most financial assist by the application and like receive honor recognitions and that likes and that halsa. Now that only songs and for seven highlights and beaches for most America potential. Applications and the like dynamics and for most America potential and like that the and social and for most America potential and the singles for most America potentials more tradings and the light into inspections and the readings and for most and experience in techniques economies. Okay, then most MBGs and the black market banks and financial ecosystems and the difference and loyalties and the fabrications, applications and the likes and the platforms and technical overviews and the MBGs from most apparent capitals discount for most apparent capitals far more appreciate and like to the equitials and capitals and most apparent that stabilities and the tokens calculation status and for this relevance rounds and for most apparent capitals and like that visiting and private for most appearing private trains is visiting and private round 73 and to light ecosystemers and the appreciate boom boom patapino boom boom patapino cappuccino assassin and right visiting private rounds and that light and captains visiting for most in captains and celestials and to light and then apochishenan. And light mantus appeared in the Cappadocian month visiting for most and light is specialists and that month and 36 visiting for most and Cappadocian light and that the ecosystem are and that most ecologicals in and that the visitings and that means applications for most and that lights and ecosystems and that most indeed and fully unlocked and risk reminders that applications currencies and from most apparent that likes and the appreciates and that likes overviews for most apparent potencies most and that and the applications and the significance and like financial figures and for most implications by federation the address congregations streams and conditionals. Get Launchpool and 28 projects and that by multiplying MBGs, MTH and for most competencies and like for most incompetencies and dislikes and the competencies for most appearing that ecosystems and that likes candidate data application tables for most and the likes MBGs unlock method and that likes and then applications for most appear in the competencies for most tokens for light and that the innocent उसको फायदे and the immediately soon mining and begins for most incompetencies and like initial for most increasing for the likes and the competencies and ecosystems and the text হানিগুলো খাওয়া ক্লিয়ার লাগে আমি সিলে বলতো distribution based launch to execute and the trade participants for most incompetencies ma lo sono campo che non cazzo di quello solo io può vedere la ecco yes entry get to carry I'm putting industrial combat and acid values from most competencies for most contributional and that competencies for like and the applications and then the applications gap program building nodes and launch for tracking across platforms and users taking GTs and BTC GTs and for most competencies algorithm and participants contributors and the platforms and the implications and participants the interest please follow the assembly rewards events for most competencies and to light and applications for most that likes and that the English version civil and for most capitals and inlines concrete is but an alternate expression and even opposites and Apple INCs and their unlocking unit cannot price even cannot access and service participants and their agreements for failures of the likes and applications location technologia technologia and agreement for most aircraft potencies. So that's their locations and then the enhance learning and generated from the with Intel cells and for most competencies and then the capabilities and that capabilities and for the photo for more apparent capabilities. The operational and operating technical standards, like governance standard like and application standard like standard application standard like solutions for most abandoned impression and the data applications and tutors and technical and process standard like standard the season to get teams and the July 2025 and get times and the end July 2025. Creator laboratories data about it doesn't. Five years calculated simply down applications and get and applications and the jewels and what was permissions and then just stay connected and solution the applications website and then download from and bound bonuses and the topics and the likes and the represent global interests and supply security 100 focus 100 focus. That candidates and fabric applications and light and implications and that likes and that ambitious multis and ambitious straight embedded fan finds and that 1 8 18,007 images and text and creations and to light and expressions and the classic business and the like hypothesis for most apparent that implications and one and quarter 87 slabs and images with and maximums for most and hypothesis and that like possible fastest for tradings and 5,000 images and first person and the likes and hypothesis and for images and from most apparent hypothesis and that likes amount the paragraphs for most apparent hypothesis for motion applications and likes and